Welcome back to another episode of Life in the Stands podcast. We have Bender and Zach on the podcast today. Remember to like and subscribe. And again, thank you for listening and watching. We're on Twitter at stands_life and on TikTok at Life in the Stands. So please be sure to also go follow those. Again, thanks for listening. We're really excited about the show we have today. We're going to talk about a way too early MLB World Series prediction. We're in the MLB offseason, lots of interesting stuff going on. So we're going to give a way too early prediction there. And then we're also going to do some NBA rapid fire. It's been a little bit since that segment, so we're going to bring that back. And then we're going to do a new segment that I'm going to let Bender explain a little bit later, but it's going to be called Take or Fake, and we'll get into that in a little bit. So, Bender, why don't you start us off talking about the MLB World Series? Since naturally we're in January, so we should be talking about the MLB World Series.
Yeah, of course. But before we start, we do have breaking news before we do get into the MLB. Congrats to Jim Harbaugh. He just signed on with the Los Angeles Chargers. I'm excited to see what he does there. And thank you for everything you did in Michigan. And best of luck to you.
Yeah, that's exciting. I'm sure we'll talk about that more as the NFL's offseason rolls along. But congrats to Jim Harbaugh. I think it's a great marriage. Excited to see that happen. Let's get back to MLB.
Yeah, let's get an MLB. A lot of free agency signings occurred in the last month or so. NFL playoffs have been going on, so we had to cover that, of course. But to get into this, the way too early MLB prediction that I have is the Yankees versus the Phillies. I think the Yankees right the ship. They haven't been themselves or their standard for the last probably like 5, 10 years now. Last time they won was with Jeter and all those boys over there. Um, but I do think that acquiring Juan Soto helps them this year. It adds to their firepower on offense, their hitting. You already have Stanton, um, Judge, of course, and Anthony Rizzo. So you do have like a kind of like a powerhouse lineup. They do need to figure out their pitching. I think that was a struggle for them last year. As long as they get that together, there's always trades and more signings that can occur. So I'm not too worried about where they stand as of now. I feel like they've just have not met their expectations, but I think this will be the year. Now, in regards to the Philadelphia Phillies, we know what they've done the last 2 years, World Series appearance, and almost made the World Series. Sadly, didn't this past year. Um, Diamondbacks got the best of us on that one. But um, the only thing I can say about the Phillies is we got rid of Craig Kimbrell through free agency. He signed elsewhere. He didn't really perform in the playoffs, so I don't think that's too big of a deal for us. Yeah, of course. But I think we just need to kind of build up our bullpen. We'll be okay because we still have the same core of guys. We still have Schwarber, we still have Castellanos, we still have Bryce and Trey Turner. So we have all these guys that can kind of fill in, do what they've been doing for us. And the only thing that I wish the Phillies did different this offseason, um, and I don't know if we would have been able to pay him or fit him in our lineup. I think we could have, but we let Reese Hoskins walk to the Milwaukee Brewers. He just signed a 2 year, $34 million contract, I believe, yesterday. Um, I think that'll be a big miss for us. I would have liked to have just moved Schwarber into the outfield and have him as our DH. But at the end of the day, I'm happy for him. I'm happy he's back from his ACL, and I hope to see him do well in a Brewers uniform next year.
Yeah, I think you make some solid points there. The teams that I'm going to pick actually could have benefited from one of the signings that they ended up having because they need some pitching help in order to kind of soothe that out in New York, like you mentioned. They could have benefited from Yamamoto. So I'll get into one of my picks. Obviously, is going to be the Dodgers with Ohtani and Yamamoto going there. But going back to what you're talking about with the Phillies and some of those moves too, I do agree letting Hoskins go is going to be more of a loss for the Phillies than maybe they realize. And he seems pretty cheap. Like I thought that he was like that wasn't as expensive as a contract as I thought I was going to see with that name attached to it. So I was a little bit surprised there too. For that price, it really makes you wonder why they didn't keep him on the roster. So that'll be interesting to see how that plays out. And then as far as Kimbrel goes, yeah, I do kind of feel like he was a large part of the reason why the Phillies lost that series last year.
It was a
So
big momentum shift. Like once he had a bad outing, you gave the other team confidence, and from there it was just kind of a dogfight, and you let them back in it. So
yeah, and then near the end of the series, pretty sure he gave up a game two on an attempted save, if I remember correctly.
yeah,
So Yeah, I mean, he didn't have a great series there, so if you're a Phillies fan, I feel like you're not feeling too bad about that. But going back to my World Series, oh, and actually, Bender, so who wins the World Series then? Do you say who wins between the Yankees and
Oh, of course, being a
Phillies?
Phillies fan, and of course with our playoff experience the last 2 years, Phillies got this one for sure.
That's if it was Phillies Yankees. When was the last time a Phillies Yankees World Series happened?
Probably '08 or '09, maybe
That seems
somewhere in
like
there.
that would be hell of a lot of fun. I would love to see a Phillies Yankees World Series again. All right, but yeah, I think the World Series is going to be Dodgers Astros. Astros are there every year. They have that same core there. It's hard for I'm the kind of person that picks the winner. I pick Mahomes over Lamar because Mahomes has shown that that's what he's done. I'm gonna pick the Astros over any other team coming out of that conference because they've shown that's what they do. So I'm gonna say the Astros are gonna make it, just because that's what I believe is gonna happen. And then the Dodgers, with the pieces they've added, even with Otani's injury, and he's probably not gonna pitch this year, he's still one of the best hitters in the league. And you get Yamamoto, which obviously fills that pitching role anyway. So I think they've really made some legitimate moves this offseason too. They have obviously a bunch of smaller moves too, but I'm going to take the Dodgers in 6 games over the Astros.
What's very intriguing to me is the way they built Otani's contract. I don't know if you saw the way they did that. He won't make most of his money until like years from now. And that was to kind
Yeah.
of like construct it in a way where they could build that team up. I think something to keep an eye on is Clayton Kershaw. As he's getting older, he's no longer really a number one pitcher, but at least you can kind of manage him throughout a season, hopefully, and see if you can get him healthy to be like a number two or number three come playoff time because they're always in the playoffs. That's not even a question every year. It's all
Right.
about their health going into it. I think the Ohtani thing long term um, is also very interesting because even though he's not able to pitch this year, once he's able to come back and pitch the following couple of years, um, between him and Yamamoto, I think it's just going to be a dominant duo over there. And if Kershaw has anything left in the tank, I think that's a great pick and a great couple of years for the Dodgers.
Yeah, another thing to think about with that is, so for I'll get into Otani's contract because there's actually some really interesting like variables to that I don't think like the when you just look at it on the surface, it's like it's not immediately appearing. It's not like immediately apparent. But in terms of just being able to build a team around him and everything, also when he's in the later years of that contract, he's not going to have to pitch as much as he was with the
Hmm.
Angels either, right? So he was like the number one pitcher. He was pitching a lot. So even when he's pitching with the Dodgers, he's not going to go back to that volume, which is also going to conserve that arm and it's going to let him have more longevity and everything too. Really makes that deal make a lot of sense. In terms of the like financial structure of the deal itself, I'm pretty sure if I remember correctly, it's like 67 million a year, but it only starts like 10 years from now or
Hmm.
something.
Yeah.
Um, Inflation's been talked a lot in the news recently. Inflation's been higher, like a lot higher than it normally is, but at the same time, because inflation is always persistent, like inflation is always there, even when it's around like the range that it's supposed to be, when he receives that money in the future, albeit it'll still be $67 million a year, it will actually be like close to 20% less valuable
Yeah.
than we think of that money right now. So as he's signing that deal up, like it's like every year that it delays paying him, like he's actually like losing a couple percent value of that money every year, um,
Mm.
which is significant when it's that much money. If you lose a couple
For sure.
percent of $700 million, that's a lot of millions of dollars.
For sure. And something I'd like to touch on as well, and somebody can kind of prove us wrong on this or prove me wrong on this, but I believe this is probably the only like the second time through all sports that somebody's constructed their contract like this in order to build around them for like their team. Patrick Mahomes is the one that comes to mind for me. Um, Even though he needs some help with some receivers, but we already kind of roasted them for that. But I think it's kind of intriguing to see big name superstars being like, yeah, I'll take a pay cut here and there just to kind of bring people on. I know Tom Brady did that, but he did it in short-term contracts, not long-term contracts.
Right.
Um, so I knew exactly that's probably what people were gonna bring up if they did it all. But I think that's great. At the same time, I also think it's kind of like a super team opportunity for. the MLB and the Dodgers.
Seriously, it'll be interesting to see what happens in free agency over the next couple of years as well. But for now, we're going to jump off of the MLB conversation. We're going to jump back into the NBA a little bit. We're going to go into our rapid fire segment. Bender is going to be answering the questions here. It's been a little bit since we've done one of these, so we're excited for this. We're going to allow it to go a little bit longer as well so we can get some more takes in since it seems to be a popular segment. So we're going to go ahead and jump right into this, Bender. Are you ready for your rapid fire questions?
Yes, sir.
All right, first question. LeBron is 39 years old. How old is he going to be when he retires?
I'm gonna say 43 or 44. I think he's actually gonna wait for Bryce to come up through, um, not just Bronny. And even if it's him being a sixth man off the bench or starting and playing 15 minutes, I think either way he'll be around for another 5 years.
That is insane, but I don't disagree. It will be insane to watch. Does Zach Levine get traded this year before the deadline?
I think he does, and I think his value's very low. I do not think him getting traded to any team makes any team a contender for NBA championship either.
Interesting. His Bender's take has kind of switched up on that a little bit. He's not as excited about Zach Levine anymore. All right, who is going to win Rookie of the Year?
Um, I think it's going to be Wembanyama just by name. He has had like a very good streak here in January. If you look at his averages in January, I think the most consistent rookie all year has been Chet. Again, I mentioned Wemby was going to have better stats because he's the only player on that team. Chet's going to have lesser stats than Wemby because he plays on a team with SGA. Um, so I think it'll be Wemby.
Yeah, well, we'll come back to the rookie conversation, uh, but yes, Chad has been more consistent, I think. Should KD be a part of the GOAT conversation?
No, I don't really have a lot of respect for his decision to go to the Warriors. I was one of those people when it first happened. I would have rather seen him stay with OKC and try and win a ring there for the next 2 or 3 years after with Russ. Um, that team was good enough to follow up the following year if they wanted to. I think it was kind of the easy way out.
I feel like I remember you being very upset in the moment at that time.
Yeah.
Okay, I remember that for some reason. All right, Tristan Thompson just got suspended for 25 games for being an idiot. Why is he still in the league?
That's a great question. I would like to say it's a great question, but a dumb question because I feel like people
Hardball
shouldn't.
question here.
Yeah, people shouldn't care about Tristan Thompson being in the league. I don't know what he's still doing there.
Yeah, like somebody is paying him a contract to play basketball still. That's crazy. Who is doing that?
I would like to know what he does good that he could mentor Jared Allen, Mobley, and all those guys in. Like I don't know because that's the only thing I can think of is him being a Udonis Haslem mentor.
I mean, if he's
But
playing the mentor role, maybe, but also he hasn't been the greatest role model. I mean,
yeah,
to
well
each
they
their own,
say
but he hasn't been the greatest role
he's
model.
he's teaching them how to take
Oh,
drugs.
Bender, Family Show, Bender. Okay, who
Oh,
is an
sorry.
underrated rookie?
Underrated rookie. Um, hmm, probably Jamie Jogg Jr. in Miami, I would say. I think he's made a bigger impact on that team than people think.
I think
Um,
people are talking about him a lot though, so I'm gonna make you say a different name because I figured you were gonna say him.
ooh,
So pick a different name because
I don't. Okay, okay, I got you. I don't think it'll be anything like too far off or even underrated. But I think Scoot has started to come on a little bit here lately. I think that's a name to look
okay,
out for.
okay.
He wasn't starting the other night. It's been Malcolm Brogdon, but I do expect somebody to make a move for Malcolm Brogdon in the next week or two. So I think Scoot will have his opportunity.
I do feel like Scoot also has kind of fallen off the map. The Blazers aren't really talked about, and because of that, he's not really talked about. It's a good pick. We'll see how he does the rest of the season. Do you think the Cavs will make a major move before the deadline?
Ooh, um, I'm going to say no. I think it'll happen in the off season, and I think it'll include Donovan Mitchell.
Do you think they'll move off Donovan Mitchell? That is a conversation to have another time as well. That's interesting. Okay, the Olympic pool of players came out today. Draymond Green was left off of it. Do you think that's the right move?
Yes, there's so many other names you can choose from. Um,
It's 40
never,
players.
yeah, I've never been a fan of Draymond either. That's just the way it is. Yeah, team basketball is needed, and that's he's kind of like a glue guy. Um, but if you got guys like Halliburton and playmakers on that list already who can do more than just pass and play defense, I'll take anybody else.
Bender's like put Rudy Gobert on the team.
Yeah, at that point,
All right, Bender, that is all of the rapid fire questions.
that's good. Enjoyed that. Um, yeah, I like that we extended it this time around. That seems to work a lot better. Um,
Got some full
but yeah,
thoughts in, got all the questions in.
for sure. Let's get into a different segment. Let's go into something that we're going to do that's new here. We're calling it Take or Fake. If you ever heard of other segments called like Pretender or Contender, Contender or Pretender, whatever you want to call it. It's kind of our version of it. We have a list of 6 different teams here. We're going to try and get through as many as we can. And we're basically going to say, are they like a fake team? Like, are they just not going to do anything in the playoffs, but they're showing up right now? Or are we going to take them in the playoffs? So, um, let's start with the first one here. I believe they're number 2 in the Western Conference right now. Let's go with the Minnesota Timberwolves.
Yeah, the Minnesota Timberwolves. I'm going to take the Minnesota Timberwolves. I'm going to take them because I think they have solid young pieces. I think they have length, they have rebounding, they have shooting, and I think they have a guy. And in the NBA, the most important thing is having a guy, and I think that guy is Anthony Edwards. And I think Anthony Edwards is legit. I think he can compete with all the superstars that you normally see competing in the conference finals and in the finals. Like the prototype is there, the growth is there that you see in his game. So I'm trusting the Timberwolves. I'm going to take the Timberwolves.
Okay, I'm going to go the opposite way. I think the Timberwolves are fake. I think I will take them next year. I think Anthony Edwards and all those guys need this year to glue together, and I think this will be a good experience year for them. I think they'll get past the first round of the playoffs because I think they'll have the 1 or the 2 seed in the Western Conference going into it, just by the way things are panning out so far this season, and if they stay healthy. But I think they need another year under their belt. I think something that they need to look out for is their point guard position for the future because Mike Conley's not going to be around for too much longer, and I think he's a big difference maker on that team, whether people think so or not.
I agree with
Um,
that.
a, a lot of good young pieces. I think Gobert and Towns finally figured out how to play together, and now Ant finally figured out how to play on the perimeter with those 2 guys, um, and kind of create for them as well. Um, so not this year. I think they're fake this year, but I would take them if it's next year.
Hopefully they
Um,
don't blow it up over the off season. If they don't take it this year.
See if they make the playoffs and make it even to the second round, I think that'll be a win for them because I they expected this year last year. So as long as I see improvement, I don't see them blowing it up.
Good
But let's
take.
move on to the next one. Big signing today, actually. Doc Rivers is the new head coach for the Milwaukee Bucks. That's the next team we're going to go with. So are you going to take them or are they fake?
I'm gonna say the Milwaukee Bucks are fake. I'm gonna say this team is fake because they just added Doc Rivers, who I don't understand how is an upgrade from what you're getting with Adrian Griffin, even if he lost the locker room, because Doc Rivers isn't gonna control the locker room.
Mhm.
Like he's not the guy to do that. And on top of that, I think the discipline of the team is lacking. Like the discipline of the team seems to be lacking. The way they're celebrating on the court after beating the Kings is not something that you see in a regular season game. It just doesn't happen. I read an article recently about how the Indiana Pacers single-handedly killed the Bucks, uh, and there's been a lot of memes about that. That's also been funny to see. But yeah, I think the Bucks are fake. I don't think that they're disciplined enough. I think they made it as high as they did, won a chip, and I think they've gotten a little lazy since then. Doesn't help that they
Yeah.
traded away Drew Holiday either.
Yeah, I was just gonna say that too. So I think they're really missing Drew Holiday, and Magic Johnson actually tweeted about that and how they're all slow and are missing Drew Holiday, and they're all slow moving defenders. Um, I think that's the big piece of it. And Damian Lillard has not looked like himself this year. Um, like there's games where he'll have 10 points and then games where he goes for 30. Consistency in the playoffs matters. Just ask James Harden. Uh, but
Ouch.
no, I think the Bucks are fake. I think Doc Rivers is not a good signing for them. Um, but in regards to the players and controlling the locker room, I think it's more just the players have too much influence. Like I don't know where Giannis got his ego from, um, all of a sudden, but it's kind of fishy to me. It seems like he's gotten way too much authority in there. I wish Budenholzer would have stayed, but it sounded like he needed kind of like a little mental health break. And
Right.
Adrian Griffin was his like side study guy, like his assistant coach at the time. So it makes sense that he stepped in to try and follow his lead. But it just doesn't seem like they gave him the same respect. Um, but no, I don't see the Bucks going anywhere this year. And they don't even win that chip, by the way, if uh, the Nets are healthy.
Right. Right. That's also true. They had an easier path there. And even with them being against a unhealthy net squad that year, they were only a big toe away, a KD big toe away from losing that
Yeah.
series anyway. So yeah,
Well, they almost lost to
yeah,
KD single-handedly by himself. So
yeah, yeah, yeah. I think they're
tough
fake.
one. Yeah, tough one there. Let's go to the next one. Let's get into another big name team, big name superstar. How about LeBron James and the Lakers?
I think they're fake as well. I just don't think that there's enough in LA. I mean, LeBron is still insane, but I don't trust Anthony Davis consistently. I don't trust D'Lo consistently. Like I just think there's too many variables for that Lakers team. And chances are it's not going to be the same team that they take into the playoffs anyway. So the lack of continuity with their squad too, that's inevitable, I think is going to hurt them as well. So I don't like a lot about the Lakers this year besides LeBron. I think they're fake.
I think they're fake until they make a move. That's my theory right now. I think a big move that would help them is DeJounte Murray, who's been floated around in a lot of trade talks, even with Milwaukee, since they got in on that bid. But I think if they had a guy like that, a consistent stat sheet guy, DeJounte Murray plays better defense than D'Lo, and their defense tends to struggle. They have two players on that team that play defense, in my opinion. One of them being Anthony Davis, the glass man, I like to call him. But yeah, sorry, AD, but you gotta stay healthy, my guy. But another thing I saw was that the Lakers are also very unsure of trading Reeves for DeJounte Murray. Like they don't know if DeJounte Murray moves like them up a notch at all. I think it does. I don't think Reeves has been performing as well as he did last year. So I think it might be worth dumping his contract off elsewhere, um, just because I don't think long term it'll work out. But the Lakers are fake to me until we kind of see what moves happen at the deadline in the next week or two. But next team, let's stay in LA. Let's go to the Clippers. Are you going to take them? Or are they fake?
I'm going to take the Los Angeles Clippers. I'm going to go the opposite way for the other LA team. The reason I'm going to take the LA Clippers is because I think this is James Harden's best pairing, best trio out of the last three, you could say, if you want to call Philly a trio with Maxi or Tobias or whatever you want to call Philly was. But I think this is his best pairing out of the last three teams. I don't think it was actually that great of a pairing with Kyrie and KD because I think Kyrie wants the ball. I don't think Kyrie and Harden uh, mesh that well. I think Harden and KD are okay, but Harden and Kyrie I don't think mesh that well. Um,
Mhm.
Harden and Embiid, I think there isn't really a problem with the Sixers, but I just think the style of play that the Sixers want to play didn't really match exactly what Harden wanted to do, even though the skill set pairing was probably okay. And then I look at the Clippers now, and I'm like, yeah, that seems to kind of be the best fit. Like you got two guys that are great defenders, great wing defenders, great scorers, but don't want the ball in their hands, want stuff set up for them. And you got an aging James Harden that doesn't want to take on a heavy defensive load, doesn't want to take as many shots, and is cool with getting 15 assists a game. So, I mean, I think it's the best pairing that he's had out of his recent team. So I'm going to take the Clippers.
Yeah, I'm going to take them as well. If people who have been following the podcast, I actually have the Clippers winning it all this year. And I think the scariest part about the Clippers right now is the fact that they're all healthy. And that's always been the conversation probably for the last 5 years now with them between Kawhi and PG. It's always one of the two of them. I think, again, this is the year it comes together and they finally do something. And I don't think there's a need for them to make a move. For all these teams that are probably going to make moves around the deadline, I don't think they're going to make a move that's nearly as significant. And you talked about continuity with the Lakers. This team has been together now for a couple of years.
I think they're
Um,
chilling.
yeah, the only move that I think they make is Bones Highland. I think that's just because he lost playing time with the James Harden trade. But they might end up trading him for like picks. So it won't be an actual roster move for them, and it's not a rotational player for them. It might be a rotational player for another team, like if Bones goes back to the Nuggets or something. Um, but no, like getting back to the continuity piece of things, I think that matters, and their health right now matters.
Yep.
All-Star break's also gonna creep on us, so that's extra rest. And like in the position they're in now, they're not a play-in team. They have one of the top six spots currently. If they can stay at this pace and stay on the run they went on throughout January so far, I think they can load manage, whatever you want to say anymore, their way into the playoffs and be perfectly fine.
I think so too. We haven't even brought up like Russell Westbrook,
No, no, who's been
right? Like
playing pretty well too.
off the bench. Yeah. So I think there's a lot to like about the Clippers this year. I was not originally a fan of it just because I have a bad taste in my mouth about James Harden, and part of me still believes that when it really comes down to it, he'll be the weakest link out of all the things we're talking about. But
Yeah.
at the same time, I think there's enough there even still.
Hmm. Yeah. Let's move on to the next team, the Miami Heat. But I'd like to say, first of all, you must be a mind reader or something because you predicted the Terry Rozier trade that just happened the other day as well. They didn't quite give up as much as we thought, but it still happened. So I'd like to hear your thoughts on this one.
Yeah, remind me what the original trade that I thought, what was it? Was it Duncan Robinson?
Duncan Robinson and Martin, and it would have been
Right,
Terry Rozier and JT Thor.
right. So yeah, I mean, I thought that the Heat were going to go after Terry Rozier, but I grossly miscalculated how valuable Terry Rozier is, I guess, because picking Kyle Lowry was the going price. So I think this is a huge upgrade for the Heat. I'm going to take the Miami Heat. I'm going to take the Miami Heat because I think Rozier's a big upgrade. I think they've been really competitive in the playoffs the last couple of years. I think when it comes down to it, again, in those heat of the battle moments, the last couple of minutes of games, clutch time, they're one of their biggest weaknesses has been, a lack of some of that pure point guard play slash age at that point guard position, which is the opposite of what you get with Terry Rozier. You get like a through and through kind of 1-2 guard. You get someone who's kind of scrappy, has that playoff experience with Boston, and definitely not old. Like you're gonna get youth and athleticism out there with Terry Rozier. So I think it's a great pick. I think it puts them over the top in a lot of ways. I'm going to take the Heat.
Yeah, I'm going to take them as well. I also have them going to the NBA Finals, and that was my way too early prediction a couple weeks ago. But that was also me predicting they would make a move to put them in that spot, which I think this move puts them in that position. And I think Terry Rozier is honestly a younger, more athletic version of Kyle Lowry. So I think you get the younger version of Kyle Lowry in that trade. Kyle Lowry will get bought out and will end up on a different team. I was hearing the New York Knicks are interested as well. So I think that'd be a pretty good fit for them for a team that's seeming to be a win now team currently, and trying to see what their team can do this year. We'll get into that another time, but I do have
Great
the Heat
mentor for Jalen Brunson.
for sure. And I think for the Miami Heat, you're adding a 24 points a game score as of this season to pair with Hero, Butler, and Bam. And again, I mentioned this before as well. They lacked any kind of other offensive output outside of Jimmy Butler and maybe Duncan Robinson. in the playoffs last year. And now let's say like Tyler Hero is healthy and he's playing this year. Let's say he doesn't perform that well. At least you have a guy in Terry Rozier that can create his own shot and kind of pick up what's needed at that spot.
Big pickup, really big pickup for the Heat.
Yeah. Now let's move on to our favorite team and our favorite team to talk about. Let's go to the 76ers as our last team here. Are you going to take them or you think they're fake this year?
I still think they're fake. Still think the Sixers are fake, unfortunately. I I still think they're fake um, because I've been hurt too many times. So I just I'm not gonna say that I believe they're gonna get past the second round until I see it happen. Is kind of my stance on it. It doesn't matter what happens between now and the Eastern Conference Finals. I do not believe the Sixers will be in the Eastern Conference Finals until Game 1 of that series. That's as far as
Yeah.
I can see them going, just because it's
Yeah.
etched in my
This
memory. So I have no logical argument. I have no statistic or data. Congrats to Joel for having a monster game. He is a 10. I think he's having the best season he's ever had. I like the Oubre addition a lot. I think they probably make another move too that looks great. Maxi's a legit star. Probably bounce in the second round.
Yeah, the Sixers are just like my Dallas Cowboys. I don't get excited over the regular season just because I know what's been happening in the playoffs. Um, I think the Sixers will end up losing again to a team like the Heat or even the Pacers this year. I think the only team we can beat in the second round is the Milwaukee Bucks. I think the Knicks would give us issues as well. Depends on if they can acquire a big guy, then I think it's for sure a wrap for us. Clint Capella was also a name that the Knicks were interested in. Um, so any kind of rim protection for them puts them over the top of us. I think what would separate us is the move that we make pre-trade deadline. I think a move like a Malcolm Brogdon to the Sixers would put us over the top and put us in the conference finals. And it's sad to say that the conference finals is over the top for us because we want to see him go further. But Malcolm Brogdon is a name that the Sixers are interested in, and I think
That's a
we would
good
end up
name.
having to, we'd have to end up giving up something like the Anthony Melton. But if I'm being honest with you, I would do it because DeAnthony Melton's missed the last couple of games with an injury, and we've still played pretty well without him just because we have so many wings on our team between Oubre, Batum, all those guys. Roko's there. He's not even getting time at this point, but just to know that we have depth there and we can rotate guys in and out. I don't think there's a need for DeAnthony Melton anymore, and he's a very good trade piece for us just because of his youth. So I'd be down to trade him to win now, basically. I'm okay with having youth on our team, but at some point you kind of have to commit. Um, that's kind of where I'm at with them. So I will take them if they make a move, but I think they're fake with the team they have currently.
Don't do it, Bender. Don't get sucked in, Bender. Don't
I know,
don't do it.
I
That trade deadline's gonna come around. Look at the shirt you're wearing.
I
Look at the
know.
shirt you're wearing right now. That trade deadline's gonna come around, and we're gonna add a Pat Bev type of guy to the roster, and you're gonna be like, I don't know,
Yeah,
could have put him over the top. Don't
yeah.
do it,
I wish
Bender.
I wish we would go for a big guy too. Like I think acquiring a guy like Malcolm Brogdon and even going out and getting a guy like Kelly Olynyk, which is also a name that was brought up, I think would help us because I don't think Paul Reed is going to be serviceable come playoff time. I
I
wish
was
we
just
played,
gonna ask,
yeah, I
would you
wish we
trade
played
Paul
Mo
Reed?
Bamba more. I would trade Paul Reed just because of the contract we gave him, but we had to give him that contract at the time. And it was good that we did at the time because Montrezl Harrell, I think, tore his ACL.
Right.
So we knew we weren't going to have a backup, like a true backup for a guy like Paul Reed, who was our number three center at one point, uh, jumping into the rotation. I think a stretch five would help us and keep us within the same offense without Embiid on the floor. That doesn't mean we're running post ups for like Kelly Olynyk if we trade for him, but I think the floor spacing stays the same, which helps us.
Right. And if you look at the Sixers offense now under Nick Nurse, it's a lot more dribble handoffs, a lot more, like 3-point centric rotations on the offensive wings and stuff. So if you have Paul Reed out there and a dribble handoff on the wing, that's not dangerous. But if you have Kelly Olynyk out there on a dribble handoff on a wing, that's a little more difficult to guard because he can take 2 steps back and he's dangerous. So, yeah, I definitely see why that could fit. We'll see what moves the Sixers made. I think out of all the teams that we talked about there, those 6 teams, it's reasonable to assume that maybe all of them, but the Clippers, have something that they'd like to see about their team change before the deadline. They'd like to make a move. It'll be interesting to see what happens.
Yeah, there's a lot of teams that have question marks for sure. I think it's more a wait and see for the next 2 weeks and see what happens, like you said. But don't forget to follow us on stands_life on Twitter. Don't forget to follow us on TikTok and YouTube. Subscribe on YouTube. And don't forget we're on Spotify as well. Thanks, guys, for tuning in.